This week, we give our first impressions of the Hyundai Santa Cruz and the Nissan Frontier, how CR's testing methodology will evolve as EVs become more mainstream, and we share our audience picks for their guilty pleasure vehicles. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Gabe Shenhar.
And I'm Jake Fisher.
So, the pandemic has unfortunately taken away yet another event for us here at Consumer Reports, and that's the New York Auto Show. It had been rescheduled from its usual springtime frame to August of this year, but now with an uptick in the Delta variant cases, they've now canceled it for 2021, so it's not happening at all, and it's been rescheduled back to its usual April timeframe for next year. So we're hoping that will happen, and at some point here, we'll actually start getting back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, we're it's a little disappointing. I mean, it's kind of it's not our hometown show, but it's certainly our local show being here in Connecticut. I mean, I know, me and Gabe have been going to that, for a long time. I mean, growing up in New Jersey, I was going there since I was a kid. But I guess I get it. I mean, we go in these, and you're getting in these cars, and there's three other people from different parts of the world, so they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little sad to miss out on the face-to-face time and the social gathering aspect of it. But I'll be honest, the value of auto shows these days is kind of questionable because in order for a manufacturer to introduce a car, doing it online gives you so much more freedom, so much higher, so much better reach, and so there's in that aspect, it's really a little questionable.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and we'll have to see what happens down the road. If you talk to the auto show people, they'll tell you, use numbers to show that, it's still very, very important to the industry. But you're right, Gabe. It will be interesting to see what happens as far as if the manufacturers, because if the manufacturers don't need to be involved anymore, well, there won't be auto shows. So we'll see. But for now, anyway, no New York Auto Show for this year. Let's talk about some comments from last week's episode. So last week, the gang talked about that one of the topics was cars that, you love that maybe other people don't, or even cars that you love that people actually shame you about, which is kind of mean. But and so they talked about that. And then, our awesome audience sent in a bunch that they thought were, fit with that bill. And so let's go through some of the more interesting ones you guys might get a kick out of. So the first one is Luis Isuzu Via-Cross. Now, those were rare when they were new. And now when you see one, I personally go crazy when I see one. I think they look really cool. I don't know what they're like to drive, but they sure do look cool.
I used to do this rally. It was like we did this rally in Westchester, New York, and somebody would show up all the time with a Via-Cross, and it's like, it looks like some kind of like moon landing vehicle, that's pretty much what it looks like. But it definitely stood out.
Yeah. Patrick from Aurora, Colorado says Golf Sport Wagon, and we've got a photo. Here in Colorado, everyone assumes you need a 4Runner or Tacoma if you would venture out. As you can tell from by my photo, I don't subscribe to this theory. But I got to be honest, Patrick, I don't think you're going to get any shaming from us here at CR. We really enjoyed the Sport Wagon.
Oh, yeah. That's like in fact, I just went up to, I had parked somewhere and somebody had a Sport Wagon, and I kind of walked up and I looked in the window and I saw it was a stick shift. I was like, hey, great choice. So, yes. I think that's kind of like the opposite of being shamed. Maybe be shamed by a large pickup truck owner, but I don't know.
It's the un-SUV, like the un-Cola.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Okay, this next one might be a little more controversial though. Okay, Kurt says, how about 1976 AMC Pacer? Gabe, thoughts on the Pacer?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's certainly is going to stand out. Those were quite popular in the 70s, mid 70s, but it looks like a bubble. It's kind of a car that was way ahead of its time.
Lots of glass area.
I think we need like a Gremlin Pacer kind of like face off. Can we work on that, Mike? Can you write that?
I'll see what I can do.
Rod from Woonsocket, Rhode Island says 1992 Saturn SL. Now, for those of you too young to remember, the 92 SL was the first generation of this Saturn sedan, and it kind of had this like boxy, kind of futuristic styling almost. And the other thing about Saturn, if you don't know, is that it was one of their big things was it was a no haggle pricing concept, which I actually thought was kind of ingenious, because that's one of the things people, at least I really don't like about going to the dealer is, you know that you're allowed to haggle. So you want to get the best price you can, but you're always like, there's that, am I getting a good enough price? Well, at least with Saturn, everyone got the same price. So no one felt like they were getting ripped off,
Well, and more to that, there's plastic body panels and a dual overhead camshaft engine, and actually, well, I'm going to be quiet because actually my first job out of school was actually working at Saturn at the technical center and at Spring Hill, Tennessee. So I'm completely biased here, and I'm with the viewer.
Okay. And Gordon says Pontiac Fiero. Now, I personally never drove a Fiero. But I thought, especially the Fiero GT, which had some extra styling, like these sail panels coming off the back. If you don't know what the Fiero was, it was a mid-engine, again, plastic car, right? Plastic sports car that was economical. But the GT especially, I thought looked really cool.
Long time owner of an MR2. I get it.
Yeah. Okay. And then to finish up, Pauline says Pontiac Aztec. And this SUV, I mean, it's on pretty much everybody's 5 ugliest vehicles of all time. Tell me that Pontiac Aztec doesn't belong there, guys.
Ooh.
You don't want to be mean to Pauline. You don't want to.
I don't want to be mean, but is Pauline owning it ironically? Is this
maybe?
I'll just admit that when we tested one, we had a yellow one, and luckily it was during the winter, so it was already dark when I got home, so nobody in town had to see me driving it.
I literally had people passing by, pointing and laughing as I drove that yellow Aztec. Yeah,
it was really ugly. The Buick Rendezvous was the same platform, a lot less ugly. I don't know if you guys remember. I know you guys remember that. I don't know if our audience does, but Aztec is always up there. And Pauline, send us another note. Just let us know is if you really love it, or if you really love its styling, or what you have going on there.
Or is it like a Breaking Bad tribute or something like that?
Right. Yes, that's true. I forgot about that, Jake. All right. Anyway, that was a lot of fun, guys and gals. So thanks for all those comments. We really appreciate it. Before we move on to talking about pickups this week, I just want to talk about like a giving moment for you folks. The Talking Cars donation program. If you don't know, Consumer Reports is a nonprofit organization. Everything we do, including this podcast, is funded by memberships as well as donations. So any little bit you can give helps us to continue to do the good work that we do here. You can find more info at cr.org/give-talking-cars. And now let's move on to this week at the test track. And this week we're going to talk about 2 new pickups. Well, one of them is definitely a pickup. I'm not sure if the other one is a pickup. So we're going to start with the 2022 Nissan Frontier. It's been 16 years. They finally redesigned the Frontier. It's still a tough body-on-frame truck as before, similar in that regards to a Toyota Tacoma, Ford Ranger, the Chevrolet Colorado, and GMC Canyon twins. It comes with a 310 horsepower, 3.8 liter V6 with a 9-speed automatic transmission. That powertrain was actually introduced last year, on the 2021 model before this big makeover. And it's, rear or part-time 4-wheel drive. And it comes standard with forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection. We rented two of these 2022 Frontiers from Nissan. We got a SV Crew Cab at a price of $42,205 and a Pro 4X, which is the more off-road oriented model, at a cost of $44,315. And Jake, I'm going to throw the first question to you. Why did Nissan wait 16 years to redesign this Frontier?
Yeah, let's think about that for a second. 16 years. I mean, we're talking, I think it launched in 2005. I mean, I think the reason you can't go back into YouTube and listening to us talking about the launch of the old one, I'm not sure if YouTube existed back then. I mean, this is like a really, really old vehicle. And it's interesting. I mean, they're not alone with some pickup trucks. I mean, you look at stuff like, the Toyota Tundra. I mean, it takes forever for them to redesign them, or even the Toyota Tacoma, or the Nissan Titan. And part of the thing is that some of the appeal of some of these things they're kind of retro, right? I mean, it's not all about the latest technology. In fact, driving it, I was, going down memory lane of like, the old, Nissan Xterra or the Pathfinder when it was actually truck based, and I can almost see one of those coming back as this retro thing. When you look at, Ford Broncos coming back and all these kinds of things. But why do they wait so long? I mean, there's the retro piece of it. The other thing is about reliability. If you're not trying to be like the latest technology and all the leading edge stuff, sometimes it's about reliability. And the more you redesign things, the more you introduce new things, new platforms, the more problems you're going to have. So there's kind of like a plus of trying to extend that redesign. That said, they've finally redesigned it. There's a lot of carryover, believe it or not, going back through, over 16 years. I mean, a lot of the platform and the frame isn't like all brand new. What is new is really the powertrain, which is pretty impressive, and quite quick. And in terms of the tuning too. I mean, like, ride and handling certainly has been improved.
Yeah. And let's get into that, Gabe. What is this? I mean, it's obviously not completely brand new, but there's a lot of new stuff going on here. What is this thing like to drive, especially compared to the old one?
Yeah, just to add another piece here, a manufacturer will sometimes hold off on redesigning a model depending on the segment it competes in. So the segment of compact pickup truck hasn't been so strong in the industry, and some manufacturers like Ford and GM actually took a break from that segment just to come back and introduce the Ranger and the Colorado after a few years of hiatus. So a manufacturer may not throw resources in redesigning a model that competes in a weak segment so quickly. But yeah, finally they did. And on our first impression is that the powertrain is certainly very strong and linear and smooth and all. And the car, even though a lot of bits and pieces are carried over, I mean, you can feel like the car it rides a lot better than previously, even though it still feels like a real truck. And handling is pretty relatively nimble for a truck. The rear gate is much easier to operate now. It's an easy gate rather than the heavy piece that was before. And it got modern safety features as well as connectivity. So it brings it to the modern era.
What's with the crazy heavy steering at low speeds, though? I mean, look, I get it from the perspective, if you're someone that likes to work out, you're killing two birds with one stone, right? You can get a bicep workout in while you're driving your truck. But I mean, it's really heavy at low speeds. I don't remember a pickup ever in recent memory having this heavy a steering, and it really stays heavy until you get up around above 35 miles an hour. And what that does, not only is it weird to have it that heavy, but it means that at those lower speeds, I found anyway, it makes it then feel reluctant to turn into corners. I thought once you're at higher speeds, I actually thought it handled pretty well for a pickup, but at low speeds with this really heavy steering, why would they do that?
So Mike, part of the thing about this segment is that, when it comes to trucks, I mean, you look at the full-size trucks, they're getting bigger, they're getting more rugged looking, right? And even this one, you look at the hood, I mean, they raised the hood. They're trying to make it look bulkier, like this, they used to market the Nissan hard body pickup trucks way back in the day. So I think part of it is they want to make it kind of tough and rugged, but you're right. I mean, you don't need that heavy steering, and it's certainly kind of, it's a bit draining.
It's a bit strange. But speaking of tough, you just spoke about tough, Jake. Gabe, we took, I believe, both of these up our rock hill, our famous Consumer Reports Rock Hill, which we're going to be showing some photos or some video in the background here while we're talking. And the video doesn't do the steepness of this hill justice. But Gabe, how did both trucks do? Obviously, I assume the Pro 4X did better.
Yeah, the Pro 4X walked right up the rock hill, no problem at all. It was a breeze, and part of that is thanks to the rear locking differential that it comes with, which harnesses the power and minimizes wheel spin. So that was a breeze and quite enjoyable. But I'll say even the regular SV was no slouch on its regular all-season tires as opposed to special off-road tires that the Pro X has.
Let's move inside the cabin real quick here. And I didn't personally have any real issues with the driving position. The center console intrudes a little bit with the grab handles, but not a huge deal. And I was able to, the seat wasn't that great for me either. I just felt like it didn't have a ton of support, but it's wide enough. So I think the benefit there is it's going to suit bodies of all different varieties. But I want to talk about the rear seat because I drove the SV. It's a crew cab. And the rear seat, the seat back is so upright, like I wouldn't want to be back there for any period of time. It's almost like you feel like this is a crew cab.
Yeah, agree. Just bolt upright. Yeah, agree.
Yeah, that's not much of an improvement over the previous Frontier, which is also tight in the back. But in the front, the seating position is quite decent, and I think it's important to mention that against its main competitor, the Toyota Tacoma, which the Tacoma always suffered from a high floor and low ceiling. So it not only it made access kind of awkward, but also the whole driving position suffers as a result. And in the Frontier, there's none of that.
I just want to say about competitors, right? I mean, the thing about this is a truck, right? I mean, this could tow quite a bit, and we talk about the going up the rock hill, and I think someone who's looking at a vehicle like this needs to think, how often do I go up like a big rock hill? How often am I towing over 5,000 pounds? And when you talk about competitors, we're talking about their rear seat. I mean, every time I'm driving it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I kind of get small pickup trucks. I get this. I really understand the market for that, but in my head, I'm just Ridgeline. The Honda Ridgeline is very similar price. And, you think about the rear seat of the Ridgeline. I mean, it is luxury back there compared to this. It is very comfortable inside. It has, similar size bed. And, for the same price, no, you're not going to tow quite as much. No, you don't want to take the Ridgeline up that rock hill. But it is definitely an option if you don't need all those capacities, but you want something with a lot more creature comfort.
Right. And that kind of leads into what we're going to talk about next, which is another car-based pickup truck vehicle. But before, just want to let you folks know we will be buying one, correct, for our program when they go on sale this fall.
Yeah, mid-September, we'll buy one.
Okay. And in the meantime, we have a full first drive up on consumerreports.org. So please go check that out. But next we're going to move on to the 2022 Subaru Baja. No, I'm sorry. 2022 Hyundai Santa Cruz. I'm kidding. For those of you out there that maybe don't remember the Baja, and actually even the Subaru Brat long before that. I mean, the Baja was a couple decades ago. Brat was even earlier than that. They kind of, in a sense, sort of started this whole, sort of car-like mini pickup thing. But now Hyundai has finally come out with their first ever pickup.
Wait, I have to stop you there.
Yes.
Car-like pickup truck. What about the Chevy El Camino?
Well, I was going to bring that
Ford
up.
Ranchero.
Yeah, no, that's...
But those were truck-based, if you really want to get down to it. I think you got to go to the Volkswagen Rabbit pickup truck to really be the car-based version.
But the other difference is where the Baja is different than those, and more similar to the Hyundai Santa Cruz, is that it's a four-door. It's you can actually put a family, in a sense, in the vehicle, and that's what the Santa Cruz has. It's based on a platform with the redesigned Tucson, and it's going to be facing competition soon from the Ford Maverick, which is coming out, which is another one of these small little pickup things. And of course, Jake, you already talked about it. It seems like it's kind of a competitor in some ways, even though it's smaller. It's a competitor to the Honda Ridgeline, which is the current most comfortable riding, best driving, I guess, if you could say, pickup out there, for certainly among compact pickups. And so the bed, 52.1 inches long. That's just a bit over 4 feet. So still pretty small, bigger than the Baja that I was making fun of, or maybe I was making fun of this one, I'm not sure. But anyway, much bigger than the Baja. Base engine is 191 horsepower, 4-cylinder with a regular 8-speed automatic transmission. There's an optional engine, which is a 281 horsepower, 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with an 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. Santa Cruz comes with forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection. And also lane departure warning and lane keeping assistance come standard. The base prices range from $23,990 to $39,720, not including the $1,185 destination charge. We rented a 2022 Hyundai Santa Cruz 2.5T Limited at a cost of $40,905. Okay, first question is I'm gonna say 2 questions to you, Gabe. First question is this a pickup truck? Second, who is this thing for?
So, if you define a pickup truck by having an open bed, then yes, it is a pickup truck. And who is it for? It's a lifestyle kind of pickup truck. So it's not going to be for those who really need a pickup truck for work. But when you look at what a lot of people are buying out there, it's either a pickup truck or a Jeep Wrangler, and many people are somehow migrating out of sedans. So this offers another option. Let's say you have an active lifestyle and you want to throw a bike or a barbecue in the back to haul to the beach. This will do the job. But I'll throw some caution here. It really remains to be seen who's it for. I mean, I'll give you an anecdote. We have a family friend who really likes to drive a truck, and I've been telling her, the Ridgeline, and praising it for everything that we just mentioned. But it was a non-starter. It wasn't a truck. Didn't look like a truck for her, and she has a Tacoma.
Okay. So let's get into what it's like to drive. I mean, it's based on the Tucson. Does it drive pretty similar to the Tucson, Gabe?
Oh, absolutely. It drives very much like a Tucson. I mean, and you sit inside, you feel like you're in a Tucson. The handling is pretty good. The ride's pretty civilized. It is very much like a Tucson, only when you get the optional engine, the 2.5-liter turbo, it's much more powerful than the Tucson.
Right. And I think one of the things when I looked in our logbook of what people have been saying, one thing people did say about it, because that bed is so small, they can't see it behind them, which is a little weird. So they forget that there's a bed back there. But also, it is strange driving a vehicle that if you didn't know, you would think you were just driving a small SUV, which is kind of what it is. And I thought it's really enjoyable to drive. Like you said, Gabe, especially with this optional engine. The one we buy, will we get the regular, the base engine, or what will we get?
We'll get the turbo engine.
Oh, excellent. Fantastic. And also, yeah, the ride is besides the Ridgeline, compared to other compact trucks, the ride is way better. And then basically the whole front part is similar. If you fit in the Tucson, you're going to fit in this. The controls are pretty much identical, right, to the Tucson. Jake, is there anything and the controls then are pretty good?
Yeah. Read what we say about the Tucson. This is what it is. I mean, it's very much like, it's a Tucson with a different back, I mean, just like, again, with the Ridgeline versus the Pilot, they've really changed the back of it, slightly different styling. I think what's kind of the missed opportunity, as I go back to what Gabe's talking about, it doesn't look like a truck. There's no reason why you can't make a car-based truck look like a truck. I mean, this thing could look like a Baja racer or something, or it could look like anything, it could look like a Raptor or something like that. So it's going to be interesting, who this is actually going to be for. I keep on thinking these are for me, but maybe that's because I'm narcissistic about it. But I mean, it's like I carry around bikes all the time and go go skiing or snowboarding and all these things. And I think the issue though is it just doesn't seem quite big enough. The Ridgeline does. It's interesting. You were talking about the Baja. The Baja was like basically a 3-foot bed. This is like around a 4-foot bed. You get to like you get to the Ridgeline around 5 foot. Now you're actually getting a little more functional. And, so first thing I do is I like to carry around a lot of bikes with me. So I got 2 kids that mountain bike with me. So usually, and then their friends. So sometimes we're carrying around 5 bikes in the back of a pickup truck. And, if anyone, uses those bed covers, not a bed cover, tailgate cover, and you could kind of hang it on the end, you could put a bunch of bikes really easily. So I'm like, hey, I wonder if I could do this in this truck. And I gave it a shot, and just there isn't quite enough room on it. And what's interesting about it is that 4 feet would pretty much do it, but the higher trims have this bed cover that retracts. And I actually measured it, and it actually takes up about a foot of that bed on the top. So you're going from your 4-foot-ish bed to almost a 3-foot-ish bed, which is back in like Subaru Baja times, which just makes it really hard to actually utilize that room depending on what you're carrying. So it's like almost there. Give me another foot and I'm good.
So on the one hand, it's cool that it has the ones that have this retractable tonneau cover. That actually works pretty well, and that's handy. That solves Gabe's problem with pickups, which is you've got say 3 or 4 people in the vehicle. Well, now where's your luggage going to go, right? And so you'd have to throw it in the bed of the truck, and now it's open to everybody. So this tonneau cover kind of solves that. So it helps Gabe, doesn't help you for what you do, Jake. And again, it's because you're so compromised, because you're so tight on space with that bed anyway. What did your kids think of the rear seat? Because for me, actually, if you think about it compared to the Frontier, it's actually not that bad. When you think the Frontier is bigger, but it suffers from the same thing, right? That seat back is very upright. And I always felt like I would want to keep moving this thing back if I could. You know what I mean? What did your kids think, though?
Well, they never got into it because we couldn't get the bikes in. So we wound up
Problem solved.
We took the Prius with the bike rack, and we were golden.
Yeah. So anyway, to me it seems like it's more like it's not a pickup truck. It's more like a pickup car. And in a way, because the bed is so small, it's like a less useful version of the El Camino, right? Because the El Camino's bed was big enough that you could actually put motorcycles back there. I'm kidding. That's not a fair comparison. But we will be buying a Santa Cruz. As Gabe said, we're going to buy the turbo, which is just fantastic news because it's a pretty good powertrain and does make it fun to drive. We already have a full first drive of the Santa Cruz up on cr.org, so please check that out. And as soon as we get one in and test it, you'll have our full road test results.
And Mike, you're going to be writing that face-off between the El Camino and the Santa Cruz, right?
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that.
So please, folks, TalkingCars@iCloud.com. That's the best way to get in touch with us. Let us know who has a pristine El Camino that they want us to test versus the Santa Cruz, and we would appreciate that. So with that, let's move on to audience questions. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips. We love getting those to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. And with that, the first question is a video question, and that comes from Greg. Let's see what Greg is asking us today.
Hey, Talking Cars. I really enjoy your show. I have a question for you. I have a 2011 4Runner, and the tire looks to be original by the date. Looks to be March 2010. My question is, what point should you throw out your spare tire and get a new spare tire, or rotate maybe an old tire in? Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Greg. So I talked to Gene Peterson, who is in charge of the Consumer Reports tire test program. And he said, aside from any recommendations that might be in the owner's manual, you should get a new spare tire when it is 10 years old. And Greg already seems to know that the last 2 digits of the DOT number on the sidewall of the tire is the year that it was manufactured. So Greg is on top of that. But Gene did say, even if the spare tire was never used, it ages over time. So you do need to replace that with a fresh spare, he said, when it gets to about 10 years old. So there's that. Next question is Dan from San Diego, California. Dan says, I am looking to buy a new car in the next year or so, and I want it to be electric. As an analyst by profession, I appreciate CR's standard methodology for rating cars. I'm curious if CR has or will create a methodology to rate aspects unique to electric vehicles. For example, range versus efficiency, or at-home charge rate versus DC fast charging. As more EVs come to market, I would appreciate CR's take on these uniquely electric features and how well each manufacturer handles them. Gabe, I'm going to throw this to you. What is CR doing, and what are our plans to do maybe some unique tests specific to EVs down the road?
We already incorporate the efficiency of EVs into the road test score. So the efficiency in terms of miles per kilowatt hour, or the way it translates into miles per gallon equivalent, is part of the road test score. Also, we also have a couple of elements that are unique to EVs. For instance, the ability to charge quickly at DC fast chargers in public venues. And that's a built-in. That's all built into the road test score. So you're gonna find these descriptions in the text, but you're not gonna find an actual rating that's unique for that. Maybe that's something we can look at.
So let's move on to the next question. This comes from Steven. Steven says, some EV models, such as the Ford Mustang Mach-E and Kia EV6, are coming in both rear-wheel and all-wheel drive. Will their skateboard battery design give weight distribution good enough for the rear-wheel drive to be comparable to the all-wheel drive in rain and snow? Jake, yes? No?
No.
Okay, move on.
Just like a regular car, you're going to get better traction on slippery surfaces with all-wheel drive. So it's quite easy to do with the skateboard construction. You add another electric motor on the front axle, and you get all-wheel drive. There's no drive shaft that goes in between the two axles.
But even when you look at gasoline-powered cars, there's plenty of gasoline-powered cars that are rear bias weight, 50-50 weight, front bias weight. It doesn't matter. I mean, around a corner, you definitely want also to have that all-wheel drive. It's going to help you on slippery surfaces.
Gotcha. Okay, William from New Jersey says, there have been several discussions on Talking Cars pertaining to gear selectors. In the published reviews, cars with electronic gear shifts are often criticized. However, the Toyota Prius has had a joystick as a gear shifter since 2004. It has never entered any such discussion that I can remember on the show. Jake is always fawning over his Prii, but has castigated other car makers for their electronic gear selectors. It's as if the twain shall never meet. Does the Prius's efficiency and reliability wash out this shortcoming? First of all, castigate it and twain shall never meet. William is clearly a wordsmith, a linguist. I love that. But I also love that Jake is on the spot. So Jake, what's your answer? I mean, why are you so biased against the Toyota Prius?
I guess this won't be the first or the last time that I'm called out in social media, so I'll take it. But let me first say, like, absolutely no uncertain terms, the shifter on the Prius ain't great. Okay. Never has been. So it is not conventional. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's not like the little chiclet buttons that you got to go fish around for on some of the newer vehicles. But it is a problem. And actually, when we do rate the Prius, we do give it some demerits for that. Also, in terms of the rollaway prevention, which we are also looking at. So a lot of these newer types, electronic shifters, if they don't automatically return to park and things like that, if you open the door, we've been taking off points. Toyota has been actually systematically changing the logic based on that and actually putting in the rollaway prevention strategies, either putting the emergency brake on or putting into park. So no, just because there's good things about the Prius doesn't negate the bad things about it. And let me also say that the steering feel ain't great either. So we'll just kind of, not everything's great about the Prius.
Yeah, look, there are nuances about shifters, and not all electronic shifters are created equal. There are those that are pretty easy to get used to, easy to operate without looking. So in parking situations where you're back and forth, reverse drive, no problem. There are those, though, that require you to look down and really be careful in how you decipher the choices between a reverse, drive, park, so that there is that factor as well there.
All right. Excellent. William, thanks for calling out Jake. Please, folks, call out Jake anytime you can. I think he actually loves it.
Don't tell anybody. But yeah.
All right. Last question comes from Steven from Tomball, Texas. Here's a question that Gabe would likely be the best person to answer. We used to own a 2007 Volvo XC90, and I found that my back got tight after 30 minutes of driving it. I thought it might just be that vehicle, but then I experienced it in an Audi Q5 as well as a BMW X5. But this has not happened to me in American and Japanese cars we've rented. I bought a Cadillac CT6 that I loved, but my wife was not a fan and likes to stick with European brands. So Gabe, with all that, what can I buy to make us both happy? For those of you that don't know, longtime viewers of the show will know, Gabe Shenhar is our resident lumbar support expert. But Gabe, as you answer this question, remember when Steven says, what can I buy to make both of us happy? He's talking about him and his wife, not you and him. Okay. So it's for them, not just for you.
Steven, I don't know if you're asking me as a chiropractor or as a marital counselor. So, anyway, this is tough because if you like the seat in the Cadillac CT6, and the CT6 has a very Euro style kind of seat in terms of foam density and the bolstering. So that's a little perplexing, but the CT6 has a shorter bottom cushion, so it offers less under thigh support than some of those European cars you mentioned. So it would be, but if you didn't have a problem with Japanese cars, I would say you should probably try a Lexus RX. Make sure that it's the one with a package that contains the four-way lumbar support, and make sure that the passenger side also gets the four-way lumbar support. So that would be my practical suggestion, and I don't think there is any. I don't think you need to be married to a European brand. After all, it's your back and your happiness and your comfort there.
Yeah, and to that point, if there's one thing we constantly deal with is that the seat comfort is so body specific and person specific. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we just sit down for our one-day trip debrief meetings, and someone thinks the seat fits them perfectly. Someone else is like, "Oh, this is the worst seat ever." And so I think the best thing you can do is go sit in these cars, and if you can, take them for a little longer test drive than you might, because the first 5 minutes is not going to tell you what say 20 minutes might. Okay, well, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. You can learn more about the cars and the topics that we talked about by clicking on the links in the show notes. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.